thank you all. Congratulations to all of you. We don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm going to try to squeeze in as many questions as possible.
Great.
Sean, just tell us how this came about, because I think when we all went into lockdown last year, you were about to shoot a whole other film. So this came about pretty quickly.
Yes, I would say this is a COVID film for two reasons. Not only was it shot during COVID, but it was shot due to COVID. We were prepping for another film for over 2 years. We were in development, and it's something that just could not be shot during a pandemic. So we were just sitting in Los Angeles in February of 2020, and one of my producers, Alex Sachs, said, I think I can find you money to do something. Do you have anything? And it just happened to be that my co-screenwriter and I, Chris Brigosh, and I think he's out there somewhere. Chris and I had this idea on the back burner that had been sitting there forever since we had done research on another film and found this character that we really wanted to explore. And it just felt right. It felt like something that could be done for little money and during a pandemic. So we went ahead and did it. And it was so we pivoted and jumped right into production, and it happened pretty quickly. We shot it in, we were actually shooting this time last year, I believe. It was a September shoot.
So was this an idea that you had related to Starlet, or?
Exactly, okay. Yes. I made a feature called Starlet prior to Tangerine, and Chris and I had done a lot of research in the adult film world, because that film touches on that subject. And we met a handful of men that were like Mikey Sabers. Yeah, that's true. There was this archetype that we found. And there's a slang term for them in the industry, which we give you at the end of the film there, suitcase pimp. And these men fascinated me on many levels, mostly due to their, complex way of thinking. But all the characteristics of Mikey were in these men: the narcissism, the being completely unaware and ignorant of other people's pain and hardships, and what negative effect they have on other people, always playing the victim, yet on the surface being incredibly appealing and charming and funny and entertaining. So I think Chris and I were like, we have to someday explore this character.
So at what point did you think of Simon for the role?
It was right after Florida Project, when we were juggling, are we going to make Red Rocket, or are we going to make this other film? And it was around then we thought, well, if we make Red Rocket, it's Simon Rex. So we've been thinking about him for about 5 years for this.
Simon, your response to reading the script?
Oh, I mean, as soon as I found out it was Sean, I didn't even care. I just knew I'd want to do it before I read it. But then after reading it, I was like, wow, this is really good, and it's going to require a lot of memorizing. And there wasn't a lot of time. I had like 3 days to get to Texas. It was very last minute, so I just I loved it, and I was in no position to not do it, and I was just excited to play in this world with. I knew Sean worked with first-time actors, and I was just like, well, this is going to be interesting. And yeah, it was like you said, it was during the middle of the pandemic, and I wasn't doing anything else, so I jumped at it, of course.
So maybe since we have so many of your amazing actors here, maybe we can say a little bit about how you found each of them. I think you have a particular genius for casting, and I think that's so important to your films.
That's nice. Well, thank you. But I just am so lucky to have found everyone here. But I want to shut up and let you all talk about how you came to the production.
I'm first. So I'm a refinery worker. Due to the pandemic, I was laid off. I had a lot of free time on my hand. I was home walking my dog, and this strange blue car kind of crept around my block. And ended up stopping, and it just so happened to be Sean and Coco. I'm not sure if y'all know Coco, but Coco.
Alex Coco, one of the film's producers.
And so they were like, yo, this is what we do. This is what we're doing. Would you be interested in letting your dog be a part of it? I'm like, yo, sure, why not? And it kind of went from there. I was just walking my dog.
Judy?
Oh, okay. Okay. I met Sean. Sean came all the way to New Orleans to see me. That was beautiful. I met Sean from another producer, Roberto Minervini, who I done my first movie with. I think he's out here somewhere.
Which we showed in the festival too a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's an amazing documentary entitled "What You Gonna Do When the World's on Fire." Roberto Minervini. He's a wonderful director, and he's somewhere out there. And I saw Judy in the film and just fell in love with her.
That was so sweet. And that was awesome. But the thing is, when Roberto called me and Sean, he said Sean is a producer. I'm like, dang, they got a white producer coming to the hood. I said, cool. Again, 2 times in a row. And that's how I met this lovely individual. Give him a hand if you don't mind. You've done amazing things.
Susanna.
Good evening. I met Sean after I had just moved to LA. I had only been there like 9 days, and I went to the movie theater to go see He Won't Get Very Far on Foot. Great movie. Not to be, advertising another movie, but than the one we're doing. And Sean just walked up to me. He said, "Hey, do you want to audition for something?" I said, "Oh my gosh, yes." He told me who he was. I had awkwardly Googled him right in front of him. And that was when I was 23, and I'll be 26 at the end of October. So it's been a minute, but the patience was sweet. It was worth it. Yeah.
I am good friends with Sean's partner, one of the producers, and the amazingly talented actor and acting coach on this film, Samantha Kwan. And it was during the pandemic, and I had just I was in a play that had to shut down due to COVID, and I was stuck in Portland, and she called me and she said, "Bree, we're working on this film, and I just immediately thought of you for this." And I said, "Well, what is it? What's the role?" And she said, "She's a heroin-addicted former porn star." And I said, "Thank you." I said, "Thank you." And so I auditioned. I submitted an audition. And then I got the call, and that's how it happened.
I think I can maybe ask one or two more questions. I wanted to, something that you just touched on, Sean, when you were answering this, describing the character of Mikey. And maybe you and Simon can talk a little bit about finding this balance of this character who is very obviously charismatic, but also, pure like essence of toxic masculinity.
Yeah, well, on the page when you read it, he's a very unredeemable, horrible, narcissistic sociopath of a person, which is amazing and fun to play. But I knew that if the audience didn't like him, then you're not interested in what happens to him. So then you'll lose, interest and not care about the end of the movie. So I just tried to make him as likable as possible. So I just made him, boyish, and maybe he doesn't know what he's doing. Maybe he doesn't mean to be so horrible. That way you're kind of conflicted and you're wondering, why do I root for this guy a little bit? And I just made a real clear choice with each, the few people I interact with, that I just wanted something from each of them. So with her, I wanted shelter. With her, I wanted work and sex. With them, I wanted to sell drugs, and I just made a simple, want from each of them, and that was really it, and just made him as likable as possible, considering how horrible he is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Okay. I guess I'm getting the wrap-up signal. But one last question. I feel like we have to touch on this. Is the kind of the politics of the film in a way. It's a 2016 film. We are, situated in time very precisely here. So can you tell us what you had in mind, Sean?
Well, yeah. For the most part, I'd like to leave it up to the audience for interpretation. I mean, that's very important. That's one of the reasons that I've left it ambiguous to a certain degree. But also, let's just say this is an indictment of politics in general, or politicians in general. I want both sides of the aisle to be talking about this movie and to be discussing this film. So it's important for me to really allow the audience to interpret some certain symbols, certain likenesses they might see, and yeah, I know we're cutting it short. I could go on for a while on this one, but let's just say again, this is this is in 2016 because 2016 I think was the first time that I felt a U.S. election had become a reality television show, and it was watching our characters absorb the coverage of the election in the same way that they would absorb, a courtroom reality show or an infomercial. It became that base. So anyway, that's a little bit of what I was thinking. But again, Chris and I would really like to leave it up to the audience for an interpretation there.
I'm afraid we have to wrap it up, but I want to thank all of you for being here and for the film. So
Thank you.
Thank you.